Hello, my name is David Sanchez. I am 30 years old. The first language that I learned was Spanish. My parents are Spanish speakers and native to Spanish speaking countries, I want to say. Um, my father's from Puerto Rico, so um, that's technically United States, but my mom is from Ecuador. Um, they raised me speaking Spanish, my brothers and I, my older brothers. And in fact, my brothers were ESOL students for the grades of kindergarten through first grade. Um, they were exited after first grade. My mom made a big push for that. She thought that the ESOL aspect was a negative label put on my brothers, and they weren't receiving the highest quality of education um, for whatever reason. So when I came along, she really pushed the English language in the home and through academics. Um, so what happened was I forgot most of the language, or I didn't use it as much as we would have if my mom wasn't so adamant about filtering out Spanish and really honing in on our English speaking skills and reading, writing, and all of the above. Um, so that being said, my conversations with my parents is very unusual. They speak to me in Spanish and I reply in English. I really only speak Spanish when it's necessary. Like my grandmother, she doesn't speak English at all. My aunts and my uncles really don't speak English. I'm sorry, at all. So I speak to them in Spanish because I have to communicate. Um, yeah, so that's basically my history of language. So I learned Spanish, then English, and stuck with English, and I really only use Spanish as a second option. Um, I'm just moving on to the second question. What contributed to the levels of success you achieved in this language? So I learned Spanish in middle school, and when I started learning Spanish in middle school, I mean, I've never learned how to read or write until I got to middle school. Most of what I've learned was a conversation piece, talking conversations. And I learned very quickly that the Spanish I was learning in school was very different, not very, but different from the Spanish that I learned at home. The flow of the words and the speech, the enunciations, um, made it very clear that I wasn't a native speaker. And with that came a little embarrassment, but I kind of understood what the structures were. There's many contractions that Spanish speakers use, so that's what I have trouble with, and it became a challenge. Um, so I learned how to speak formal Spanish, and my parents obviously informal, but there's a little conflict there, and it's obvious in my speech, and they notice it, and it's become like a cultural thing, where you are separated from those who can actually speak the language very fluently, and as opposed to someone who speaks it well but um, doesn't sound like his brothers and sisters, his parents. So I'm sure we'll be discussing that in this class. Final question: how do you communicate who you are? Well, speaking about my family, I do introduce myself whenever I meet my family members or family members' friends in Spanish. Um, I get the feeling that it's rude. Well, my parents made me feel like it's rude not to introduce yourself in Spanish first. But as I carry myself every day, I speak English. In fact, in my house, I have a wife and three kids. I speak to them in English. Um, I teach them Spanish, um, but it's not the language that we use in the house. In fact, my middle child is the only one that's really curious and excited about learning the language, so I really practice with her. But besides that, I mean, we're fully, I guess, Americanized. Is that the right word? I'm sure you'll correct that by the end of the semester. Well, I hope you got what you asked for, so I'm signing off.